Hi, it's Stephen here from Sound of an Ocean Wave, coming to do a quick response to a hashtag from Simon of the Hermit's Cave, and it's the hashtag myfirsttarot. So it's talking about the first tarot deck that you obtained, what it was, and the story behind it. Now, I wasn't sure whether to do this or not, because the actual first deck I had, I don't actually have in my possession to show you. But I was talking with Simon earlier, chatting in a live chat on someone else's video, actually, and the issue came up, and he said, "Well, just do it anyway. Come, it doesn't really matter." So I think I know how I'm going to approach this now, and the first deck that I ever had is actually the same deck that Simon first had. That was the other reason why I wasn't sure whether to do this response or not, because he'd already shown his deck, because he actually has one in his possession again, and that was the, I don't know if you can see the image of it, the 1JJ Swiss tarot card deck that came in a box like that, and I remember it well. And I think I'd be right in saying that at least goes back as far as when Simon got his. I think he said it was 1987 when he obtained his, and it must go back at least to that, if not slightly before, if not a little before, actually. And yes, and the similarities between my story and Simon's is uncanny, really, because being here in the UK as well as him, in the same county, in fact, not too far from him, but I too saw the images of the cards on a program called Tales of the Unexpected. If you've seen Simon's video, if not, I'll link it below so you can go and watch Simon's video to this, which was basically it used to be like a half hour to an hour program that used to sometimes come on the weekend, Sunday night maybe, years and years ago, based on stories, short stories by Roald Dahl, who wrote Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and all those other children's books, as well as Chi Bang Bang. No, he didn't write that, did he? I think that was Ian Fleming. Why do I think Roald Dahl? No, Roald Dahl wrote a screenplay for a James Bond film. That's right. Okay, I'm going off topic, but I'm getting my Roald Dahls and my James Bonds and that mixed up. It's late here, but I wanted to get this done while I was of a mind to, because you know what it's like. You know, if you put it off to the next day, something crops up and you never get around to it. So and I told Simon I would do it, and I like to keep my word when I've said to someone I'm going to do something. So so yes, it was basically short stories by Roald Dahl, do the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and he used to introduce them at the beginning in the armchair, and there used to be perhaps some weird tales of suspense and with a twist at the end. That's why Tales of the Unexpected, and sometimes they used to have a rather bizarre or macabre edge to them, and I used to enjoy them. And in fact, I read a couple of the book versions of it where they had some of the short stories in them by Roald Dahl. I can remember reading those in my younger days. But at the beginning of that program, in the credits at the beginning, the introduction to the program, when the music, we had this music playing, and I quite liked, and they had the dancing silhouette of a naked lady, and and also they had like a carousel with tarot cards going around, and it was these 1JJ Swiss tarot cards. So saw them, same place as Simon, intrigued by the imagery, or it just piqued my interest, fascinated me, and even the concept. And of course, I'd also seen different kinds of tarot cards in the James Bond film Live and Let Die, where again with Simon again had seen cards there. So I'm sure that film Live and Let Die, for anybody that watched it familiar with tarot cards, if from nowhere else, from that film. They were another deck involved in that. The ones used by Jane Seymour as Solitaire. I think it's called. Is it? It's not. It's Witch's Tarot, but it's not like the Witch's Tarot that a lot of people may know. It's a certain deck, and I think Simon has that one as well. I mean, he has a lot of decks, doesn't he? Let's face it. But yes, I think he got that specifically because it was from the film. So I have neither of those two decks, and I love. I say that I was intrigued by the whole thing through the use of tarot in the James Bond film, and these decks, these cards that were going around in the credits of this Tales of the Unexpected program that used to come on in the evenings years and years ago, and I actually found the deck in a shop local in town. I managed to pick them up, and I got hold of them, and I used to love I liked the backs, and I loved the images, the colours in them, where with the what I know to be the majors. I probably didn't even know that, even the difference between majors and minors. They were just cards. They were just a deck of cards to me, I think, way back then. And with the minors being the sort of pip deck, sort of the Six of Swords was literally 6 swords, and 6 of Cups was literally 6 cups in. So but they were nice to look at, and like Simon, I wasn't too sure what to do with the minor ones that didn't have a picture in them. The majors had a little bit of a scene depicted as well, a bit more like a traditional. You had something to look at, you had an image to look at, and even if you didn't read a little white book or something, you could probably get some kind of interpretation. So I particularly like looking at the majors, and I must have been aware of it at the time, but since getting back into tarot sort of recently, I was reminded about the fact that the High Priestess and the Hierophant, or the Pope and the Papess, were called Juno and Jupiter in this deck, and I remember that now. When I was reminded of it, yes, I thought yes it did, and I often wondered why they had those curious names. I just thought it was part of how the deck was supposed to be. I suppose it was. It was designed like that for But I didn't actually connect the fact until very recently that the JJ in 1JJ Swiss was the Juno Jupiter reference. So you're always learning, aren't you? But I don't have that deck. It disappeared, like Simon's. Funnily enough, it's funny, isn't it? As sometimes of these early things going out through the it too went. It probably was thrown out. Maybe when I went into the church not long after, in my late teens onwards. So it disappeared. But that was my first experience, my first deck. But I'm going to twist this response a little bit. The first deck that I got since leaving the church and beginning my slow journey back into tarot wasn't that deck. It is a deck I do have in my possession, and I've had this for at least 10-15 years, maybe slightly more, and it's the original Rider-Waite deck that you can get from W.H. Smith's or any other good retailers like that. But I actually think it was W.H. Smith. I don't want to give them a free advert, but it was. But you can get them in other such stores. And yeah, it's the cheap and Simon says it's the images aren't the best in comparison to perhaps other versions of the RWS deck, but they were enough for me, and I can remember studying a little, getting some books, a couple of books from the library, and looking at how to try and understand them a little bit better, and of course looking online for meanings and things like that, and sort of gradually getting back in. But anyway, it isn't about my journey back into tarot. This is just about the deck, and that stayed with me all through. And when I really became part of this online community and really into it, really into tarot again, I've used it, and since I've actually modified it, I've trimmed it to make it borderless and edged it in blue. When I first got this deck, I didn't know what trimming a deck was or edging a deck was, and it's a nice little portable deck now, a little pocket deck, if you like, that I can take anywhere, and it doesn't matter if it gets lost or damaged. Well, it does matter, but it's not the end of the world, because I can easily go down to W.H. Smith or any other kind of shop like that, and pick up a replacement. But I wouldn't want to lose it. I wouldn't want to let go of it and have anything happen to it, because now I just have a kind of almost a sentimental attachment to it now, because it's been with me for such a long time, and it served me well, and it's like an old friend that's been with you, and like my relationship with tarot has changed and evolved over the past year or so. It's like this deck being modified and changed has also changed and adapted and evolved. So it sort of reflects my experience with tarot, and that's why I think that this now is a very special deck to me. And its value to me in that respect is far greater than the actual, physical value of the deck, and even the quality. To me, the spiritual quality and value is priceless, really, and it's a special deck to me now. And so, although I have other decks, my deck collection has grown since then, and it may not be one that I use too regularly now, because I use other decks, but I do come back to it from time to time because, you know, when you want that simple connection with a trusty old friend, it's this kind of deck that you can go back to, and you know, there's a certain amount of trust and bond with a deck like this. I don't mean Bond as in James Bond going back to Live and Let Die, but you know, a connection, the bond with this deck. So that's it. That's that. The 1JJ Swiss was my technically very first deck, but I think this qualifies as a first deck on my resumed journey back into tarot. And so yes, and I may try and get hold of a 1JJ Swiss deck at some point. I may even try and get hold of one of the decks that was used in Live and Let Die. You know, just for nostalgic sort of interest, and but yes, but this one's a trusty old friend. So there you go. That's my response to my first tarot. So I hope that my contribution to this hashtag was of interest and added an extra dimension to other things that have been said about perhaps the same decks. So so thanks for listening, and I'll see you all again very soon. Okay, and I'll leave the link to Simon's video below. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.